Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Biden cast himself as defender of freedom in 2024 ad page. South Korea President opens US tour with NASA Space Center visit. US-South Korea unveil new nuclear deterrence plan. Columnist E. Jean Carroll begins testimony in Trump rape trial. House Republicans prep for date vote, Biden open to meeting. Disney sues DeSantis, calling park takeover retaliation. North Dakota limits bathroom use for transgender people. Tobacco company settles with US over business in North Korea. Mattel introduces first Barbie with Down syndrome. Iran court orders US Obama to pay $313 million for terrorist attacks. China says it will send peace envoy to Ukraine. Ukraine's Zelensky upbeat after talk with China's Xi. Russia's Lavrov warns of EU militarization, says similar to NATO. Brazil's Bolsonaro gives testimony to police on January 8 riot. Brian Reynolds' Pirates finalize $106.75 million 8-year deal. And Aaron Rodgers excited about new adventure with Jets. You are listening to Headlines, now news in detail. President Joe Biden cast himself as a defender of freedom on Wednesday in his first campaign ad since launching his 2024 re-election bid, aiming to flip the script on Republicans who have traditionally seized that mantle. The television ad, which will air in major markets in the 6 states Biden carried in 2020 that are key to his path back to the White House, aims to portray Republicans as part of an extreme movement bent on overturning elections, restricting access to abortion, and undermining voters' economic security. It's a taste of what is said to be the core of the Democratic president's campaign message to voters, as he seeks to paint all Republicans as embracing former President Donald Trump and out of the step with popular opinion and the nation's values. Courage, opportunity, democracy, freedom. They are the values and beliefs that built this country and still beat in our hearts, a narrator says. But they are under attack by an extreme movement that seeks to overturn elections, ban books, and eliminate a woman's right to choose. The ad goes on to say Biden has made defending our basic freedoms the cause of his presidency. The freedom for women to make their own healthcare decisions, the freedom for our children to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to vote and have your vote counted, for seniors to live with dignity, and to give every American the freedom that comes with a fair shot at building A Good Life. The 90-second spot includes footage of the deadly January 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol by a mob of Trump supporters trying to overturn the 2020 election and of children fleeing a school shooting, as well as patriotic-themed images of flags being raised and Biden greeting supporters. For freedom, for democracy, for America, Joe Biden, the ad concludes. The Biden campaign said the ad is airing as part of a seven-figure two-week media buy in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. It said a second ad will be released next week. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has toured a NASA flight center as his country and the United States signed a joint statement to increase their collaboration in technology and space exploration. "I have always believed that mankind's future lies in space," Yoon said on Tuesday in his speech from the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, where he was joined by US Vice President Kamala Harris. Yoon underscored his vision for transforming South Korea into one of the world's top 5 leaders in space technology, with plans to reach the moon for resource extraction by 2032 and land astronauts on Mars by 2045. In her remarks, Harris called the US-South Korean alliance a linchpin of security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. She credited the alliance with tackling some of the most important and pressing issues of our time, including the two countries' collective defense in the face of aggression and provocation, a seeming reference to North Korea and its recent missile tests. Yoon's visit to the Space Flight Center, one of NASA's original research hubs, marked the first leg of a 6-day US tour, which included a formal White House visit on Wednesday with his US counterpart, President Joe Biden. The trip marks the South Korea's first state visit to Washington, D.C. in nearly 12 years and the first state visit from an Indo-Pacific leader during Biden's term in office. Yoon's tour is also timed to the 70th anniversary of the 1953 Mutual Defense Treaty, which established the two countries' alliance. He has spent part of Tuesday visiting the Arlington National Cemetery, a memorial site largely for military personnel, as well as the Korean War Memorial with Biden. President Joe Biden and South Korea's Yoon Suk-yeol announced Wednesday the two nations will bolster the response to North Korea's persistent nuclear threat with an agreement that includes plans to dock US nuclear-armed submarines in South Korea for the first time in over 40 years, bolster training between the two countries, and improve information sharing between the allies. The new extended nuclear deterrence effort was unveiled as Biden hosted Yoon for a state visit at a moment of heightened anxiety over an increased pace of ballistic missile tests by North Korea. Biden delivered a blunt warning to Pyongyang at an afternoon Rose Garden news conference with Yoon, saying a nuclear attack by North Korea against the United States or its allies and partners is unacceptable and will result in the end of whatever regime were to take such an action. Yoon said that the new commitment by the righteous alliance includes plans for bilateral presidential consultations in the event of a North Korean nuclear attack, the establishment of a nuclear consultative group, and improved sharing of information on nuclear and strategic weapons operation plans. Sustainable peace on the Korean Peninsula does not happen automatically, Yoon said. Biden and Yoon aides have been working on details of the plan for months and agreed that occasional and very clear demonstrations of the strength of US extended deterrence capabilities needed to be an essential aspect of the agreement, according to 3 senior Biden administration officials who briefed reporters ahead of the announcement. E. Jean Carroll, a former Advice columnist, has started to testify in a civil trial where she alleges that former United States President Donald Trump raped her in the 1990s and later defamed her when she came forward with her story. "I'm here because Donald Trump raped me, and when I wrote about it, he lied and said it didn't happen," Carroll said in Manhattan Federal Court on Wednesday. He lied and shattered my reputation, and I'm here to try and get my life back. Trump was not present in the New York court, nor is he required to attend. However, in the lead-up to Wednesday's testimony, the former Republican president took to his social media site, Truth Social, to denounce the case as a made-up scam and a witch hunt. Those comments earned his legal team a rebuke in court from U.S. District Judge Louis Kaplan, who warned Trump against making comments on social media that could be seen as discrediting the trial. The trial is one of the numerous legal challenges the former president faces, as well as the 34 criminal charges for which he was indicted in a separate trial last month. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy pushed ahead Wednesday toward a swift vote on his sweeping debt ceiling package despite a veto threat from the White House, struggling to shore up support even after making post-midnight concessions to Republican holdouts in the slim GOP majority. Passage of the sprawling 320-page package in the House would be a turnaround for the embattled McCarthy as the chamber's Republican majority confronts President Joe Biden with demands for spending restrictions and cuts in exchange for approving 1.5 more debt to pay the nation's bills. While the president has threatened to veto the Republican bill, which would almost surely die in the Senate anyway, McCarthy is challenging Biden with a GOP plan to kickstart negotiations and prevent a potentially catastrophic federal debt default this summer. The two could hardly be further apart on how to resolve the issue. "We can vote as early as today on this," said Majority Leader Steve Scalise after a morning meeting of House Republicans, though no vote was scheduled. "We want to get this done as soon as possible." The House launched a noontime debate with lawmakers saying they were expecting a vote later Wednesday, though some Republicans cautioned that a final roll call could still push into Thursday. Disney sued Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday over the Republicans' takeover of its theme park district, alleging the governor waged a targeted campaign of government retaliation after the company opposed a law critics call "Don't Say Gay." The suit, filed in Tallahassee, was filed minutes after a Disney World Oversight Board appointed by DeSantis voted to void a deal that placed theme park design and construction decisions in the company's hands. It's the latest conflict in an ongoing feud between DeSantis, a Republican expected to run for president, and Disney, a powerful political player and major tourism driver in Florida. The dispute with Disney has drawn significant criticism from the governor's White House rivals and business leaders who view it as an extraordinary rejection of the small government tenets of conservatism. The fight began last year after Disney, in the face of significant pressure, publicly opposed a state law that bans classroom lessons on sexual orientation and gender identity in early grades, a policy critics call "Don't Say Gay." As punishment, DeSantis took over Disney World's self-governing district and appointed a new board of supervisors that would oversee municipal services in the sprawling theme parks. But before the new board came in, the company pushed through an 11-hour agreement that stripped the new supervisors of much of their authority. The DeSantis board on Wednesday said Disney's move to retain control over their property was effectively unlawful and performed without proper public notice. Transgender kids and adults in North Dakota won't be able to access bathrooms, locker rooms, or showers that match the gender they identify with in places like college dorms or jails under a new law signed by Republican Governor Doug Burgum. The American Civil Liberties Union has said that so far this year, more than 450 bills attacking the rights of transgender people have been introduced in state legislatures. Burgum's office announced Wednesday that he signed the bill the previous day. It had passed the State House and Senate with veto-proof majorities. Dorms and living facilities controlled by the State Board of Higher Education would be affected, as well as correctional facilities for youths and adults. Restrooms and shower rooms will be designated for use exclusively by males or exclusively by females. Transgender or gender non-conforming people would need to get approval from a staff member to use the restroom or shower room of their choice. The governor's office declined to comment on the bill Wednesday. A British tobacco company has agreed to pay more than $629 million to settle allegations that it did illegal business with North Korea in violation of US sanctions, the Justice Department said Tuesday. British American Tobacco, one of the largest tobacco companies in the world, entered into a deferred prosecution agreement with the Justice Department, while the company's Singapore subsidiary pleaded guilty to conspiring to commit bank fraud and violate sanctions. The London-based BAT said in its own statement that the settlement concerns sales from 2007 through 2017 and that the company has since taken steps to improve its business practices. North Korea faces stringent US and international sanctions going back nearly 2 decades for its nuclear weapons program and development of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Pyongyang has continued to research and test more nuclear weapons. It has also worked to evade sanctions with the cooperation of allies like China and illicit trade with bird countries and companies. Smuggled tobacco products are regarded as a major source of revenue for North Korea's nuclear and weapons of mass destruction programs, the Justice Department said. Toy company Mattel revealed its first Barbie doll representing a person with Down syndrome on Tuesday. Mattel collaborated with the National Down Syndrome Society to create the Barbie and ensure the doll accurately represents a person with Down syndrome, the company said. Design features of the new Barbie were made under guidance from NDSS, Mattel said. In addition to portraying some physical characteristics of a person with Down syndrome, the Barbie's clothing and accessories carry a special meaning. The blue and yellow on the doll's dress, accompanied by butterflies, represent symbols and colors associated with Down syndrome awareness. And the 3 chevrons on the Barbie's necklace represent how people with Down syndrome have 3 copies of their 21st chromosome, Mattel said. In addition, the Barbie wears ankle-foot orthotics, which some children with Down syndrome use. This means so much for our community, who for the first time can play with a Barbie doll that looks like them, NDSS President and CEO Candy Pickard said in a statement. This Barbie serves as a reminder that we should never underestimate the power of representation. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Down syndrome is the most common chromosomal condition diagnosed in the US today. About 6,000 babies are born across the country each year with Down syndrome, the CDC said. Now it's time for global updates. An Iranian court has ruled the United States government and a number of individuals and entities, including former President Barack Obama, must pay compensation for 2017 attacks carried out by the armed group ISIL. The court in the capital issued the verdict on Wednesday based on complaints by families of 3 people killed and 6 wounded during the June 2017 attacks in Tehran, according to the official news website of the judiciary. The building of the Iranian parliament and the mausoleum of the founder of Iran's current establishment, Ruhollah Khomeini, were targeted during the daylight assault that killed 17 people in total. The court ruled $9.95 million needs to be paid to compensate for financial damages, while $104 million and $199 million are for moral and punitive damages, respectively, with the total nearing $313 million. Those convicted in the case include the U.S. government, Obama, former President George W. Bush, Central Command, and its former commander Tommy Franks, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Treasury Department, weapons manufacturer Lockheed Martin, and American Airlines Group. None of the named entities or individuals is believed to hold any assets under Iranian control that could be seized, and the court did not say how the compensation order would be carried out. China's leader Xi Jinping told Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in a phone call on Wednesday that his government will send a peace envoy to Ukraine and other nations, state media said, after Beijing said it wants to act as mediator in Russia's war with the country. A government statement reported by state TV gave no indication whether the Chinese envoy would visit Russia. China will send a special representative of the Chinese government on Eurasian affairs to Ukraine and other countries to conduct in-depth communication with all parties on the political settlement of the Ukrainian crisis, the statement said. It made no mention of Russia or President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine last year. There is no winner in a nuclear war, the statement warned. China has tried to appear neutral in the war but has refused to criticize Moscow's invasion. Xi and Putin issued a joint statement before the February 2020 attack, saying their governments had a no-limits friendship. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said he and Chinese leader Xi Jinping had a long and meaningful phone call Wednesday, their first known contact since Russia invaded Ukraine over a year ago, and Beijing appointed an envoy to pursue a political settlement. The nearly hour-long call came 2 months after Beijing, which has long been aligned with Russia, said it wanted to act as a mediator, and a month after Xi visited Moscow. The timing was also relevant because it comes as Ukraine is readying its forces for a spring counteroffensive. Zelensky was upbeat about the call, which offered him the chance to insert his views into what had been a bilateral dialogue between Moscow and Beijing. Russian President Vladimir Putin is eager to keep Xi close as a counterweight to the United States, which has sided with Ukraine. I believe that this call, as well as the appointment of Ukraine's ambassador to China, will give a powerful impetus to the development of our bilateral relations, Zelensky said on Facebook. An official readout on his website called the conversation productive and said it leads the way toward possible interaction with the aim of establishing a just and sustainable peace for Ukraine. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said the European Union is becoming militarized at a record rate, and there was now little difference between the EU and NATO. Lavrov told a news conference on Tuesday at the United Nations in New York that a recently signed declaration essentially states that the NATO military alliance of 31 members will ensure the security of the 27-member EU bloc. He appeared to be referring to an EU-NATO declaration in January on their strategic partnership, which called Russia's invasion of Ukraine the gravest threat to Euro-Atlantic security in decades. But the declaration does not state that NATO will ensure the security of the EU. NATO and the European Union cooperate on issues of common interest and are working side by side in crisis management, capability development, and political consultations, as well as providing support to their common partners in the East and South, NATO states on its website. Lavrov was asked whether the war in Ukraine was a miscalculation on Russia's part, as since Moscow's invasion, Finland had joined NATO, with Sweden expected to join next, and Ukraine also lobbying for membership. NATO never had any intention of stopping, he replied, referring to what Moscow views as the Western military alliance's expansion towards its borders. Lavrov also referenced actions in recent years that saw Sweden and Finland increasingly taking part in NATO military exercises and other actions that were meant to synchronize the military programs of NATO members and neutral states. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro gave testimony at the federal police headquarters Wednesday about his actions related to the January 8 attacks on government buildings in the capital, Brasilia. 1 week after his leftist successor, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, took office, Bolsonaro's supporters raided and trashed the buildings of the Supreme Court, Congress, and the presidential palace. Hundreds of them are expected to stand trial. Brazil's Prosecutor General Augusto Aras said earlier this month that Bolsonaro allegedly encouraged the perpetration of crimes against the rule of law. The former president had left the country after his defeat and was staying in Orlando, Florida during the attacks, and has denied any involvement in them. Bolsonaro had never openly conceded defeat in the closest presidential race since Brazil's return to democracy over 3 decades ago. He also repeatedly made unfounded claims that sowed doubt about the reliability of Brazil's electronic voting system. Many of his die-hard supporters still believe the election was fraudulent, though there is no evidence. His sworn deposition Wednesday lasted some 2 hours and is a step forward in just one of the investigations targeting the far-right leader that could render him ineligible for upcoming races or result in jail time. Bolsonaro admitted March 15 that his ineligibility is possible, but said prison could only result from an arbitrary ruling. The former president has denied any wrongdoing in the cases. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,209.99. The NYSE Composite is decreased by 153.54 points or 1.00%. Tokyo stock close price is 28,416.47. The Nikkei 225 index is decreased by 203.60 points or 0.71%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,264.1006. The Shanghai index is decreased by 0.77 points or 0.02%. Hong Kong stock close price is 19,757.27. The Hang Seng index is increased by 139.39 points or 0.71%. Bombay stock close price is 60,300.58. The Sensex index is increased by 169.87 points or 0.28%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. The Pittsburgh Pirates are building around outfielder Brian Reynolds. Pittsburgh and the 28-year-old switch hitter finalized the largest deal in franchise history on Wednesday, a $106.75 million 8-year contract. The agreement was announced less than 5 months after Reynolds requested a trade. The Pirates insisted they were committed to keeping Reynolds in the fold, and eventually the two sides came to an agreement on a contract that could keep Reynolds in Pittsburgh for the rest of the decade. The deal includes a club option for 2031 that could make the agreement worth $124.75 million over 9 years and a limited 6-team no-trade provision. Aaron Rodgers believes he is where he needs to be, and the New York Jets' new quarterback thinks they can do big things together. The 4-time NFL MVP was introduced by the team Wednesday to much fanfare in the team's auditorium, filled with media, coaches, and team staffers, flanked on the stage by coach Robert Saleh to his left and general manager Joe Douglas on his right. "This is a surreal day for me," the 39-year-old Rodgers said. The team officially announced the trade for Rodgers moments before he entered the auditorium. The Jets received Rodgers, the number 15 overall pick, and a 5th rounder this year from the Packers. In exchange, Green Bay got the 13th overall selection, a 2nd rounder, a 6th rounder, and a conditional 2024 second-round pick that could become a 1st rounder if Rodgers plays 65% of New York's plays this season. Rodgers spent his first 18 seasons in Green Bay, helping the Packers win one Super Bowl while establishing himself as one of the game's greatest quarterbacks. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV US and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all LED TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV, and also in all European countries and Australia, available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jadoo TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago Media Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.